Then I'm going to discuss about this representation again, minority representation. Very, very important in media. Minority, minorities representation in media or media representation in media. So, how minorities are being represented in the media? So, when you say minorities, minorities actually constitute Dalit, Adivasi, as well as this religious minorities. So, we also have a very different understanding of minority in a plural society like India, which is multilingual, you are at the same time multi-religious society. So, we also have a different idea of minorities. So anybody who is also poor, who are marginalized, women also come to a marginalized categories, like they are also minority. Children are also minorities, right? Again, this indigenous community, ethnic communities are minority. Okay, minority in terms of the kinds of rights they claim and their status in the society. That's what actually define them as a minority. The kind of status they do have in the society and the rights which are available for them, which are not yet provided, entitled to them, and for which they have been fighting, for which they have been struggling a lot, are known as minority. Because of their very status, they are known as minority. The status which uh, actually deprive them from some capability, deprive them to even get into the mainstream culture, and also always create a kind of slave-like situations, always create a condition like colonized situation for them, and that's why they are minority, because they cannot even come into the top of cultural hegemony. So when you talk about this media representation of the minority, is very, very important to understand, because we know already the, like, caste divisions, that varnashram dharma, we understand it, but in terms of how media has been representing it, very, very important. In that case, you need to understand some of the available literature um, uh, for Dalit, for even religious minorities. So for Dalit, we will take up these issues, because now also it is most of the time it is not discussed, and you also see Dalit literatures are mostly written by even the dominant class, even that Brahmin class. Most of the time, they have developed this epistemic capacity of the Dalit people, the Brahmin caste. Okay, not a Dalit people itself or a people belonging to minority has contributed in this epistemic capacity or in this literature on Dalit. So that is a kind of like question which we'll always raise when we talk about this media representation of minority. First, we get to see the kind of literature which is available, and during colonial age also we have literature like Muknayak is one Dalit literature. Muknayak, if you have learned, one is Muknayak. Okay, Muknayak is basically a journal, fortnightly journal and newspaper, fortnightly. It was published uh, in 1920, and it was basically the editor and founder of it was Ambedkar. So Muknayak. Then we also have there is another paper, freedom of mind, that I don't know the year. Basically, freedom of mind. Um, so that also came up. So I forgot it, that like year when it came up. But you see, there are numerous Dalit literature, but it is not covered by the mainstream media. People do not know the availability of Dalit literature. And what is there in this Dalit literature is important. When you actually understand the media representation is a worst issue. Representation itself is a worst issue. First, their Dalit representations, or even not like as the people representations. I'm taking it uh, in the newsroom. Okay, so it's very, very important, their representation in the newsroom. If you see that, like, number of anchors, number of panelists, and also kind of coverage which is also made to caste issues, then you get to see that there is a caste discourse, casteist discourse, which is dominating the media scenario. That is also you get to see like 4 out of 5 anchors are from the that upper caste. At the same time, you also get to see that 10 out of even 1,000 articles only cover caste issues. 10 out of 1,000 over the year, 10 out of 1,000 articles can have a coverage on caste issues. At the same time, you can also see all the talk shows. You have seen talk shows and the panelists. They are basically from upper caste. Okay, not from the lower caste. So lower caste is not represented properly. And when I talk about the caste, class, and gender are actually triple burden for a particular community, especially the women. Women has been bearing the burden not only of caste, class, as well as gender. That is a kind of triple burden, and especially for those who are belonging to lower caste. Caste issue is there. Okay, then class is there. Being a member of lower caste economically sees backward, right? At the same time, gender-based discrimination she has been facing. So you actually see that these problems are intertwined when we talk about the caste, we talk about the patriarchy. Even caste and patriarchy, these are also not separated from each other. Okay, these are not two separate binaries. Caste patriarchy are also intertwined, and many a time it is also said. I have read somewhere that when you talk about the body politics of this women, body politics is basically women body is controlled by the men, and most of the men are belonging to upper caste. And lower caste man won't come into the scene, and there is a systematic, you see, that invisibility or also inferiorization of the lower caste men into this scenario. So that is also that is noticeable. So if you tangibly you try to identify the media representation on the basis of number of anchors, number of panelists, you get to see like there is a statistical difference. You get to see number of anchors from the upper caste will be more. The number of you see that the panelists from the upper caste will be more. At the same time, you see we have P. Sainath. P. Sainath has been writing about Dalit issues. Even he also got this award. You know the P. Sainath. He is basically a Brahmin. Uh, you know P. Sainath. He's a real. You don't know. So, and there is a piece, Dalit Goes to Court, and for which he also awarded that Amnesty International Award in 2000. So, he has been reporting on development journalism and reporting on development in rural areas, basically on development communication sector. He has been working, and he is basically a development journalist, and his focus is on rural reporting, that various problem and that adversities in the rural areas brought in focus of the media, brought into the focus of the media. So he is one person, and also Romila Thapar has been talking about this representation issue in the you see in the rural panchayat, Gram panchayat. Women are not represented, and caste women are also not represented. Means like women from the scheduled caste are not represented well. There is no representation at all. They cannot also become a kind of head, village head at the same time. There are women village head. To certain extent, you can see 1 or 2% representation of women can be achieved and accomplished, but at the same time, there is no caste women or lower caste women, Dalit women get representations or become a village head of the panchayat. So that is also one question. So that has been raised by Thapar, but at the same time, you see in JNU also, I have found there are so many quotas available for SC become unfulfilled. Okay, that is 22% quotas available for SCs are unclaimed. So unclaimed quota, you see, like there is a situation, people are not even this SC communities are not educated enough. Okay, that has again created representational issues. Now, when you talk about certain scenarios, we have an incident that is called 500. You remember, you find that 500 Mahar community is basically Dalit community. They are concentrated in Maharashtra. Okay, that Mahar community has fought with the Peshwa 30,000, Peshwa. 500 Mahar community fought with 30,000 Peshwa army, and also defeated them. and that became a news. 500 Mahar community. Mahar is untouchable. Not even like scheduled castes. They happen to be untouchable, for which Ambedkar had fought vigorously. So this Mahar army, that was actually that happened to be an incident, that in 500 Mahar, that community Mahar army defeated the Peshwa army, 30,000 Peshwa army, and they have celebrated 1st of January as a victory day. And they have been celebrating that day, but there is no media exposure that they have been celebrating the day. Instead, in 2008, what actually happened, you get to see that uh, some that again Vandalites, they have huh? Yeah, yeah. So they actually they created that, like, violence. They that spread the violence, and that is being covered. That okay, and Dalit also protested against the violence. That is being covered by the media. That they have protested against the violence. So that is being covered, but they have been celebrating their victory for years. Is not being covered by media. So that is a representational issue. Okay, why media has not even provide that kind of coverage? You talk about this Ambedkar Divas, Ambedkar Jayanti on the birth anniversary of Ambedkar has been celebrated as an Ambedkar Jayanti. At the same time, and Ambedkar and Hiren Gohain of Assam, they also like birth date is same. Ambedkar on 14th of April, I think, and Hiren Gohain is also birth date of Hiren Gohain. Sir is also up on 14th of April. So like we have been celebrating this Ambedkar Jayanti, but most of the time there is no media coverage. And there is also a Mahaparinirban Divas that is actually a date anniversary of Ambedkar. It's not covered by media, right? And you see on Mahaparinirban Divas, what happened out there in Maharashtra, there is a Satyabhumi. In Satyabhumi, there, there's a huge assembly of people. People usually gather, come here, they buy and sell literature and worth million. Those literature are Dalit literature. It's not been even covered by media. At the same time, there is also another Divas, that is uh, Thamasakra Parivartan Divas. Thamasakra Parivartan Divas is also equally important for Dalit, and especially Dalit in Maharashtra, because Ambedkar made them converted to Buddhism. Okay, made the Dalit converted to Buddhism and get themselves out of that Hindu framework and being converted to Buddhism. So this Dhamashakra Parivartan Divas is being celebrated, where Dalit is actually concentrated on that. That is, this is called Diksha Bhumi. So they assemble in the Diksha Bhumi and they get converted to, they celebrate their conversion to Buddhism. So most of the Dalits, they shy away from the Hindu framework, Hindu ideological framework. So that framework, and they have preferred, they have converted themselves to Buddhism. So this is also not being highlighted. Okay, now how media has been provide the coverage. If you look at in terms of content, how media has provided a coverage of like Dalit. You, if you look into the nexus, even the patriarchy and caste nexus, that is important to understand. So you need to find that this this whole Indianness framework is actually revolves around this Brahmin women. We also have that Indianness framework, because what is resting in our imagination about the sindoor and the vermilion, and that I am also wearing that bangles and everything. So and a very polite, docile attitude. That also you actually very symbolic to, you see, Brahmin Hindu women, and they tend to confine themselves into the four walls. I have also told them freedom is cannot be associated with Brahmin Hindu women, because the system is very, that's what we have been studying, reading, and we have seen. So they cannot associate freedom with them, because outside domain is not for them. Okay, so Dalit women is one. They have to survive themselves. They have to sustain themselves. They go for all kind of subsistence. Go to field. they grow foods, they grow even like crop, they cultivate. So they tend to work for the family, and most of the time they tend to work for the family, and that's why that's the reason they are dark skinned. Most of the time is also said because they tend to work outside. They are not confining themselves into the four wall of household. They have to work for the families, but at the same time that's why they are dark skinned. But what is being media, what is being projected by media, so one literature is also there, is that in this Bajrangi Bhaijaan it is that दूध जैसी गोरी है ये तो ब्राह्मण होगी, दूध जैसे गोरी है ये तो ब्राह्मण होगी. So in that way you also see that is a kind of racial statement. So and very casteist statement, right? दूध जैसी गोरी है ब्राह्मण होगी. So they do have a very favorable attitude to kind of fair skinned teen, and you also see uh, that tall women. So like that kind of idea which is being disseminated, and kind of imagination which is being even carried forward by the media against that dark women and dark fat women. Right? So the same time, this is a kind of discourse, and very caste discourse, not anti-caste discourse. Caste discourse have been formed, and that is formed by the media. Okay, and you see nobody actually look into the Dalit body. So because they are tanned, suntanned body. Okay, but they have been working for long. Their agency is not highlighted by newspaper. Their subjectivity is not highlighted. They're working outside the home. Their subjectivity is not highlighted. You see, in terms of literature also, one sati herself on fire, make to literature, make a point in the literature, make a subject in the literature, set herself in fire. Although we have also Sati Prevention Act that came in 1987, that also prevent glorification of the Sati. But that has become a literature, make a subject of the literature. Sati become a subject of the literature. But women who has been surviving after husband death, who is remarried. So even if she is remarried, her life is not life is full of struggle. It's not out of struggle. Okay, even if she is divorcee, she has been struggling. No, her way of life is not depicted. Is not to make a subject or point to the literature, point of discussion in the literature. So in that way, you get to see the media representations of minorities, especially the women and Dalit women at the same time, because they are also bearing the triple burden, and their agency subjectivities are not highlighted. When you're talking about the film now, you talk about different film, you see this Nayador, that is an artist, that is a film. You have this Kun Pasina, that's earlier film. You have that Janji, the Diwar. Okay, you get to find that this Dalit factor is always hidden. It is concealed behind this poor man, common man. That factor is highlighted, but Dalit man is hidden behind this poor man, that character, right? And also when there is a glorification of male folk, you get to see some there also some mention of poverty, and that is that 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 their conditions very very you see unequal condition has been highlighted. But at the same time, always Dalit are being victimized. The way it is being depicted is that Dalit is being victimized. Okay, they are oppressed most. In that way, they have been shown. In that way, in certain extent, it has created a kind of you said make it a point to literature. But how they are being projected is important. Okay, any kind of, you take any kind of that incident on rape victim, Hatras victim, there are Hatras incident, there are numerous rape incident. Always focus, you get to see media focus on the victim, on the on the girl, not on the oppressor. Okay, so that is also kind of bias attitude. Always focus on the girl, their family. Okay, her face is usually blurred, family members' face is usually blurred, but you have all the interview, all the deliberation, whatever, all the sources limited to that oppressor, oppressed only. that and oppress most of the cases of the rape. You get to see Dalit women happen to be the victim, right? Dalit women happen to be the victim, and there are numerous incidents. Okay, so when you talk about the atrocities and how media has been covering the atrocities earlier to first media, there was incident that only 10 out of 1000 talk about caste violences and atrocities because there is lack of leadership. There is lack of leadership. People don't like to read about caste-based atrocities. Now you get to see that there are some grassroots media. You get to find that Neelam Foundations, and you have that this is Sumit Sambas, then this Bagre, and also Kas Collective. These are some of the outlet, art and craft based outlet, as well as there are also grassroots caravan is also there, right? Grassroots even media organization, they have been highlighting these atrocities nowadays, but again highlighting the atrocities of the caste. They haven't highlighted this the psychology behavior of the oppression, and also their situation is not reflected at all, right? Oppressor situation is not reflected. So that is a kind of bias we get to see in terms of media representations. So even if in the movies like Sairat is there, then Kala, that Rajini's he happens to be that lower caste, and he belonged to lower caste community. So so people can resonate, and Rajnikant even people can resonate with Rajnikant, and you also see that movies like Shairat Mashan, they depicted that intercaste love. At the same time, that is a black man has been, you see, loving a white woman. So in love with a white woman, or in love with that upper caste woman. So have you seen that? That is a kind of trajectory which is being shown in that movie. But those movies have not been projecting the very agency and subjectivity of even Dalit women. So and that's the scenario.
You said that it's a very good example. Right now, it would be a very good example because the Brahmin girl is shown to be like dark skinned, while the guy is, yeah, the guy has fair skin and he's a Dalit. So, I mean, I think that is a different kind of
Reverse kind of anti-caste ideology. So anti-caste discourse have been formed recently to certain extent, and because of this grassroots media organization, they have been running stories on caste atrocities, violence, as well as you also see the whole scenario has been reversed. We're talking about the reservation. We have also got the benefit of reservation. So we cannot say that we are not getting the benefit of reservation. We have got that benefit, and hence, to certain extent, seems situation have been changed. We, but at the same time, along with this deleted, we also see that disabled, even transgender, they are also not being represented at all. Disabled women, transgender women. We talk about these even that is these are basically even dark skinned women. They're also not being like uh, represented properly in the media. So representation issue is there, and basically it is symbolic also. You talk about angry women, angry man concept, angry man concept. This is also it is valorizing this anger and masculinities of the man, right? But at the same time, people try to associate angry man with the emotion of Dalit Panther, that is actually a group there advocating Dalit rights. Okay, so Dalit Panther's anger has been reflected in Angry Man, that heroic feeling. They're like glorifying the masculinities. Okay, but at the same time, it has titillating the masses, but made us forget the history behind their anger, history behind the anger of angry man. So we tend to forget it. Why they are angry? Because of this 3,000 years long history of discrimination and deprivation that have made them behave in that way. Okay, so these are some of the issues. I have also discussed about it in the one lecture with this class, like human rights, students of human rights. Then there I have also I have told you to identify the difference and some equations and similarities between this like caste, poverty, and also lack of access to resources, okay, and lack of social capital among the caste. That is also one thing. There are mobilization, fraternity has also been established. Association has been there, caste association, Brahmin caste association are there, mobilization are there. But how far we are getting benefit from that mobilization? Because Dalit people are not getting benefit, minorities are not getting benefited from that mobilizations because of their poor social cultural network. Okay, so you also see the upper caste boy and a girl and a male, female, or upper caste person will always, that is basically this I'll also say upper caste person. Now that is a gender neutral language. Upper caste person will always get benefited from the, you see, social capital, their network, their cultural capital, social capital. Okay, but there are not many rich in that community, Dalit community, SC community, that they can actually think about the another Dalit or like that poor and improvised Dalit people. So that is also one thing. And social cultural capital is not strong at all. Okay, so these are some of the issues, and you also like, regarding this media representation of the minorities, uh, and how Dalit is being represented often as a victim, Muslim is represented as a gangster, right? And Hindus are represented as the like caste Hindus are represented as the hero. That way they are being represented. Okay, uh, so these are, and the programs related to, like, Dalits are not even like, you need to know some of the programs also, like their programs, you see, related to this conversion occasion, Maha Parinirban, that is the Divas, and you also see it as Dhamma Chakra Parivartan Divas is not been covered, but Karba Shot is being covered, Lakshmi Puja is being covered. So that is a way you understand this lack of representation of this community. Okay, but at the same time, we also get to see, we talk about dangling earring. No? This is a very interesting analogy I'd like to see. This dangling earring, this concept actually come from, like, Dalit. They usually wear, and these ethnic people, they usually wear this dangling cap, and now it is marketed in such a way that everybody is wearing it, right? So also try to get that, like, minority identity, you get a tattoo, that is also actually minority identity. So there is also reverse trend. You get a tattoo, you are embracing that minority identity, tattooing yourself. Tattoo is basically, very ethnic to it, and embracing a tattoo is also embracing a minority identity in that way. So things are getting reversed in that way, but again, in somewhere or other, caste has been institutionalized. Okay, it is institutionalized, and there is also that macho kind of attitude which come up of the Sapakas Hindus, that they are the savior of the masses. That kind of attitude we get to see. Okay, so voices of the Dalit and the minorities, and even the minority religion, are not being heard. Okay, but again, at like one point, we get to see that everything has been like, that merge and confluence. But this intersectionality, what we are talking about, at times it is also lip service. It is also, people said it is simply a lip service. We get to see some kind of intersectionality, but it is simply a lip service, and in reality, we don't see people claim that. But the thing is that we need to find out the positive trend, which I've seen. So that is another aspect. And one more thing, I haven't seen the duster.
Intersectionality is not a positive trend. That's what you
But
when intersectionality.
intersectionality means you get to see caste, even see caste, sexuality, and labor. That is intertwined, and that has also made these Dalit women, like, out of that subsistence and survival need, free for, like, sexuality, and that too in public domain. And there is also kind of binary, that a loose woman and a pure woman. Have you seen? Asexual is also identified as a pure woman, and if you were into that sexualized woman or loose woman, that kind of binaries have also been drawn. And when you talk about caste, gender, you see patriarchy, then sexuality, labor, these are different section, intersection. Okay, so we often tend to ignore when we try to evaluate any kind of representation and reflect upon the representational issue. Hmm. And because you need to go deep into understanding the caste, sexuality, and the labor at the same time. Okay, and as they go, this like minorities could not get the benefit of the social capital, and they are also poor. They cannot access to the resources. They are deprived of the capabilities. So there are not many issues coming, and needs are not satisfied. The physiological needs are not satisfied because of which they are working outside at the same time, and they are making their sexuality available in the public domain. So it is this kind of like that you see analysis and interpretation are not being given everywhere because of the constraint of space, and it is dictated by that objective standard even, or you get to see that much more corporatization of the media. Don't get into this in-depth news and interpretation of uh, like lifestyle and stories and agency and subjectivity of the literature. You're getting? So because it is important, you cannot look at caste from caste perspective. We need to create an anti-caste discourse. People said that we will need to change. We won't say someone SC, then we can change the caste discourse. No, SCs escalate them way. So, but you don't alienate them. There was a situation once, 10, 20 years when I was a student. There was also a situation that in like in journalism school in Tamil Nadu, there is a time that journalism school, no, Asian School of Journalism. So, the people, Dalit people are alienated. Dalit students are alienated. There is a huge representational issue in educational front even. They could not, most of the seat got unfulfilled, even in JNU also, most of the quotas reserved for Dalits are unfulfilled, that is. So they cannot even claim. And because they are not educated people. At the same time, even if they get into, they are alienated. And most of the time, they need to hide their caste identity, not to bear for, not for prevent themselves bearing the consequences of this caste identity. So that is one situation that they had. So Dalit people also faced. But 10 years later, people said we can claim, but you yourself see, you can also carry out a survey. You picture is quite obvious and clear, but go deep and try to identify. And I have been telling you that the Dalit people themselves don't speak about Dalit. You know, like only the dominant class, this upper caste people talk about the Dalit. That is also one thing. Upper caste, you see the caste Hindu people, even Brahmin people talk about the Dalit atrocities, even they talk about the oppression they are mitigating. So, in that way, the Dalit themselves are that is ripped off from that epistemic capacity. Okay, why they don't talk about their own problem? Okay, and their own literature. One is like they're not literate, many literate people are not there. So even if there are few people who are literate, so if they started talking about it, people will also start looking from different lands. Okay, and there is always a fear of alienations. So that should not happen. Okay, so this is important. Okay. Okay, one thing that is important regarding this media representation of minorities. Then we have discussed about ideologies, like we have discussed about the realism, liberalism, and constructivism, right, and Marxism. So if I want you to write any three ideologies, you can pick realism, liberalism, Marxism, or constructivism. So when you talk about this realism, so everybody have understood that we have that like the collective defense arrangement and balance of power and deterrent, right? So it is important. But when you talk about realism, intangible term, intangible form, we get to see this like that nuclearization of the foreign policy. Our foreign policy has been nuclearized, right? So realism is important to understand from the national interest point of view. What are the vital national interest of India? Vital national interest of India is to maintain the sovereignty, maintain the territorial integrity of the state, as well as maintain friendly relation with its neighbors, right? And also develop continue this development and economic growth, and also create an environment which is peaceful and secure for the nations, right? At the same time, try to create a protective valve and safeguard this pluralism in the country, secularism, and also protect the structure, secular structure in the polity, as well as protect this democracy. Right, protect the national heritage, cultural heritage. So these are some of the vital national interests. And in order to uh, safeguard the national interest, we have a foreign policy, but nuclearization foreign policy is a part of realism. So when you need to understand the realist values or realist dimension perspective in Indian foreign policy, you need to understand the nuclearization of foreign policy. We have already, you say, that that tasted that Pokhran, that nuclear bomb has been tested. No, it has exploded. That nuclear bomb has been exploded in Pokhran. That tested in that nuclearization process get to witness by India in 1974. That first time. Okay, and then during Vajpayee's regime, so it also has an agenda for development. It has created an agenda for not the development, agenda for government that India need to develop nuclear capability, and India developed nuclear capability and has also, and India also had at that point of time kept everything utmost secrecy. That CIA, that Central Intelligence Agency of USA also did not get to learn that India has developed that nuclear capability and exploded the bomb until and unless it come into the news. So until it came into the news, so CIA were also not aware of. So India developed that capability in utmost secrecy and also exploded the second and the third bomb. So that is also in Pokhran. That is a spots. That is a desert in this in Rajasthan. So you get to see that on 11th May and 13th May, two bomb has been exploded. So and declared that we are nuclear capable state. And the decision of India to become a nuclear capable state is also a kind of realist decision. We need to develop our capabilities. We have been advocating disarmament. We have been advocating arm control, and India is the one nation, as I have already told you, the that founder of Nam Nation, right? Nam Nation, Nam philosophy, Nam ideology. India is one nation embracing this Nam non-alignment movement. Huh, non-alignment, that identity. So out of this identity, definitely the interest is to safeguard the vital interest, the national interest. Why we have adopted that ideology? We have adopted that ideology in order to safeguard our vital interest, safeguard the vital national interest of India, right? But at the same time, India also advocated that anti-colonialism, anti-racism, and disarmament and arm control. When you say disarmament means a reduction of existing armament and this weapon and stockpiled in the country, reduction of these weapons stockpiled in the country, and also not to retain that weapon for future. But here, people also said that disarmament won't envisage any kind of future endeavor to stockpile the weapon, but it actually reduces the current weapon. But when you say arm control, it actually reduces the stockpiling of weapon in future. Okay, that is basically controlling the arms in future. So India has been advocating disarmament and arm control for long. But at the same time, so we are also one founder member of NAM. But we have developed a nuclear capacity because of the regional environment. Regional environment has been very, very hostile. So if you need to understand this India's that really stand, so you need to understand the regional environment. You see that how China is also supporting the Pakistan in developing ballistic missile and also nuclear capabilities. Have been supporting China. China has been supporting Pakistan. China has been supporting even Bangladesh, who attained independence with the help of India. So after the death of Mujibur Rahman, you actually see that China has tried to persuade Sheikh Hasina and not to maintain a favorable relationship with India. Okay, at the same time, you also get to see that our neighbor country Myanmar doesn't have a democracy. We have a long history of democracy. Myanmar doesn't have a democracy, and most of the northeastern insurgency has got support from Myanmar. and that democracy, Myanmar, that military rule has been supported and encouraged by the China. So that is also one thing. So and Nepal and Bhutan have been having a cordial relationship with India for long. If you understand the regional environment of India and this India's relationship with this neighbor, so definitely you'll get to learn this that in this neighboring nations. So neighboring nations like you said Nepal and Bhutan, so have been having a very cordial relationship with India. But at the same time, China also provoked Nepal to develop weaponry, and that has actually Nepal has got that into Indo-Nepal treaty that India will uh, that satisfy the expectation of Nepal in development of weaponry. Okay, but that is actually instigated by China. So you actually see that is a kind of hostile neighboring environment, and this is provoked instigated by China, because of which we had to develop nuclear capabilities. Okay, and we also see we India happened to be a member of Conference of Disarmament. So there is also a Conference on Disarmament, and India Conference on Disarmament. Okay, the conference, this is called the CD, happened to be the member, and being member, India actually want horizontal and vertical disarmament and arm control, in the sense that all kind of arms, ammunitions and weaponry which is being stockpiled should be reduced, and also should not be retained in future. Okay, should be controlled. And at the same time, India also advocated for not to have any kind of underground trial. And that is for the safety of humankind, safety of mankind, and also safety of environment. Okay, and also India um, said that this horizontal and vertical disarmament and arm control will be applicable for all the countries, and nuclear even for the nuclear weapon state at that point of time. Now India has also become a nuclear weapon state. It has acquired the nuclear capabilities, but during 1967, you see, when NPT, nuclear non-proliferation treaty came, these are some of the treaty. This is a part of collective arrangement again at the same time. So collective defense is different from collective. Sorry, that is what. Yeah, collective defense is different from collective security. So India has been a part of collective security arrangement, where India say that one is for all and all is for one. That means it has been providing security and protection to all the member states of the United Nations, and that is through United Nations. So if one aggressor is identified, this is not predetermined, all will stand against that aggression. So that is not a predetermined aggression in the sense. But when you talk about the defense mechanism, that I will show you, that already we have identified an aggressor and unite ourselves against that aggression. It's a collective defense, create a defense mechanism against one particular aggression. So, being a member of the CG, India want all nations to go for disarmament. But that was not the case, because USA also refused even to um, uh, become a member of chemical weapon conventions. So chemical weapon convention, as well as you also see, that is also prevention, that is chemical weapon treaty convention. This is also chemical weapon convention. So it is being refused by USA, because USA did not want to stop manufacturing chemical weapons. Okay, at the same time, big power Russia also did not cannot stop manufacturing it. So they refuse to become a part of it. But if this is the case, they are also supposed not to force India to become a part of NPT, nuclear non-proliferation treaty, as well as that is also CTBT, comprehensive test ban treaty. So there are certain treaties, and we also have nuclear non-proliferation treaty. This is important to understand from realist stand. So that realist dimension in in Indian foreign policy, nuclear non-proliferation treaty, non-proliferation treaty, and also we have security comprehensive test ban treaty. This is basically comprehensive test ban that we have CTBT. We also have that nuclear non-proliferation treaty. India is actually forced to sign this to treaty. India refused to sign because India wanted to open that nuclear option. And Pakistan demanded that non-use of, even if India developed a nuclear capability, Pakistan, that Gohar Ayub Khan demanded at that point of time that India should also come into a treaty with Pakistan that India will not be using the nuclear capability. But India at that point of time said that India will be using will also maintain a no first use clause. Let me tell you, no first use in the sense India is not going to use nuclear that weapon um, as out of aggression to the aggressor. But if somebody, any other country, use that weapon, India will use it as a mechanism of self-defense. Okay, for self-defense it will be used, but no first use causes already there. That is important. And when you talk about this ballistic missile based on APMI technology has been developed in 1994. So we also have developed the intermediate range of ballistic missile. That is the intermediate range of ballistic missile, and we know that Abdul Kalam is actually known of the father of ballistic missile, right? We also have an Atomic Energy Commission in India. Atomic Energy Commission in India, Atomic Energy Commission in India is basically chaired by Homi Bhabha, and that C.V. Raman was earlier during Nehru's time. C.V. Raman was the advisor of Atomic Energy Commission, you know, and they try to develop the scientific tool that and also develop this missile tools, basically scientific tools to create a deterrence mechanism. So if balance of power and deterrence are the two principles of, you see, of realism. Realism believe in balance of power. Realism also believe in deterrence, create a deterrence. So create a deterrence based on, like, ballistic missile, create a deterrence based on stockpile ammunition, create a deterrence based on nuclearization of foreign policy or nuclear capabilities, is what is about, we see that realism in Indian foreign policy. Okay, so this is important at the same time to understand. Uh, Anything else? Okay then. So this is going to be the last class I'm telling you. So you also study whatever have been discussed with you. Okay. All the best to all of you. Okay. If you don't have any question, any question?